Alright guys, good morning and happy Friday. Today we're going to be finishing up chapter, we're on chapter 3 of Mice and Men. We're going to be on page 51 today. I'm trying to bounce back after that really depressing first half where Whit kills, that's not Whit, sorry, it's Carlson kills Candy's dog. That's like one of my least favorite parts of the book, especially when Candy like turns to face the wall and I don't know why he lets him do it. I guess he was peer pressured. I guess that tells you why peer pressure is a bad thing and how that can be a horrible thing. Anyway, so we're going to be starting on page 51 today. And the first kind of chunk of it, they'll be talking a little bit about their goals, what they want to accomplish. You know that they're trying to save up a stake, and they'll be talking about what they want to use that money for. And towards the end of the chapter is where it gets interesting. So hang tight because those last few pages are a little bit intense. So we're going to be starting on the top of 51 today. Where we left off. Without further ado, we'll get started. Slim followed the stable buck out of the room. George dealt, and Whit picked up his cards and examined them. Seen the new kid yet? He asked. What kid? George asked. Why, Curly's new wife. Yeah, I've seen her. Well, ain't she a Lulu? I gotta listen to the lingo in this book, right? A Lulu? I ain't seen that much of her, said George. Whit laid down his cards impressively. Well, stick around and keep your eyes open. You'll see plenty. She ain't concealing nothing. I've never seen nobody like her. She got the eye going all the time on everybody. I bet she even gives a stable buck the eye. I don't know what the hell she wants. George asked casually, any trouble since she got here? It was obvious that Whit was not interested in his cards. He laid his hand down and George scooped it in. George laid out his deliberate solitaire hand, 7 cards and 6 on top and 5 on top of those. Whit said, I see what you mean. No, they ain't been nothing yet. Curly's got yellow jackets in his drawers. That's all so far. Every time the guy isn't around, she shows up. She's looking for Curly, or she thought she left something laying around and she's looking for it. Seems like she just can't keep away from guys, and Curly's pants is just crawling with ants, but there ain't nothing come of it yet. George said, she's gonna make a mess. There's gonna be a bad mess about her. She's a jailbait all set on the trigger. That girlie got his work cut out for him. Ranch with a bunch of guys on it ain't no place for a girl, especially like her. Yeah, this part's a little regrettable. I will say it hasn't quite aged as well as much. Poor Curly's wife. Whit said, if you got ideas, you ought to come into town with us guys tomorrow night. Why, what's doing? Just the usual thing. We going to old Susie's place. Hell of a nice place. Old Susie's a laugh, always cracking jokes. Like she says when we come up on the front porch last Saturday night. Susie opens the door and then she yells over her shoulder, get your coats on, girls. Here comes the sheriff. She never talks dirty neither. I got 5 girls back there. What's it set you back? George asked. 2.5. You can get a shot for 2 bits. Susie's got nice chairs to sit in, too. If a guy don't want to flop, why, he can just sit in the chairs and have a couple or 3 shots and pass the time of day. And Susie don't give a damn. She ain't rushing guys through and kicking them out if they don't want to flop. Might go in and look the joint over, said George. Sure, come along. It's a hell of a fun time. Her cracking jokes all the time. Like she says one time, she says, I knew people that if they got a rag rug on the floor and a Kewpie doll lamp on the phonograph, they think they're running a parlor house. That's Clara's house she's talking about. And Susie says, I know what you boys want, she says. My girl is clean, she says. And there ain't no water in my whiskey, she says. If any of you guys want to look at a Kewpie doll lamp and take your own chance of getting burned, why, you know where to go. And she says, there's guys around here walking bow-legged because they like to look at a Kewpie doll lamp. George asked. Clara runs the other house, huh? Yeah, said Whit. We don't ever go there. Clara gets $3 a crack and 35 cents a shot, and she don't crack no jokes. But Susie's place is clean. She got nice chairs. Don't let no goo-goos in, neither. Me and Lenny's rolling up a steak, said George. I might go in and sit and have a shot, but I ain't putting out no 2.5. Well, the guy gotta have some fun sometimes, said Whit. And obviously they're talking about prostitution. You probably picked that up. I guess what else would you really spend your money on back then for these guys? Pretty lonely existence if you really think about it. In fact, I think that's why you have the repetition of games like solitaire and stuff, because it's just kind of an individual existence. People just kind of do their own thing and occasionally go out drinking, but I mean, there's not really much else for them. The door opened and Lenny and Carlson came in together. Lenny crept to his bunk and sat down, trying not to attract attention. Carlson reached under his bunk and brought out his bag. He didn't look at old Candy, who still faced the wall. Carlson found a little cleaning rod in the bag and a can of oil. He laid them on his bed and then brought out the pistol, took out the magazine, snapped the loaded shell from the chamber. Then he fell to cleaning the barrel with the little rod. When the ejector snapped, Candy turned over and looked for a moment at the gun before he turned back to the wall again. Curly said casually, "Curly been in yet?" "No," said Whip. "What's eating on Curly?" Carlson squinted down the barrel of his gun. "Looking for his old lady. I see him going round and round outside." Whit said sarcastically, "He spends half his time looking for her, and the rest of the time she's looking for him." Curly burst into the room excitedly. "Any of you guys see my wife?" he demanded. "She ain't been here," said Whit. Curly looked threateningly about the room. "Where the hell's Slim?" "Went out in the barn," said George. "He's going to put some tar on a split hoof." Curly's shoulders dropped and squared. "How long ago did he go?" 5, 10 minutes. Curly jumped out the door and banged it after him. Whit stood up. "I guess maybe I'd like to see this," he said. "Curly's just spoiling, or he wouldn't start for Slim. And Curly's handy. Goddamn handy. Got in the finals for the Golden Gloves. He got newspaper clippings about it." He considered. "But just the same, you better leave Slim alone. Nobody don't know what Slim can do." "Think Slim's with his wife, don't he?" said George. "Looks like it," Whit said. "Of course, Slim ain't the least I don't think Slim is. But I'd like to see the fuss if it comes off. Come on, let's go." George said, "I'm staying right here. I don't want to get mixed up in anything. Lenny and me got to make a steak." Carlson finished the cleaning of the gun and put it in the bag and pushed the bag under his bunk. "I guess I'll go and look her over," he said. Old Candy lay still, and Lenny from his bunk watched George cautiously. When Whit and Carlson were gone and the door closed after them, George turned to Lenny. "What you got on your mind?" "I ain't done nothing, George. Slim says I better not pet them pups so much for a while. Slim says it ain't good for 'em, so I come right in. I've been good, George." "I could have told you that," said George. "Well, I wasn't hurting 'em none. I just had mine in my lap, petting it." George asked, "Did you see Slim out in the barn?" "Sure I did. He told me I better not pet that pup no more." "Did you see that girl?" "You mean Carly's girl?" "Yeah, did she come in the barn?" "No. Anyways, I never seen her." "You ever seen Slim talking to her?" "Uh-uh. She ain't been in the barn." "Okay," said George. "I guess them guys ain't gonna see no fight. If there's any fighting, Lenny, you keep out of it." "I don't want no fight," said Lenny. He got up from his bunk and sat down at the table across from George. Almost automatically, George shuffled the cards and laid out his solitaire hand. He used a deliberate, thoughtful slowness. Lenny reached for a face card and studied it, then turned it upside down and studied it. "Both ends the same," he said. "George, why is it that both ends the same?" "I don't know," said George. "It's just the way they make 'em. What was Slim doing in the barn when you seen him?" "Slim? Sure, you seen him in the barn and he told you not to pet the pup so much." "Oh, yeah, he had a can of tar and a paintbrush. I don't know what for." "You sure that girl didn't come in like she come in here today?" "No, she never came." George sighed. "You give me a good whorehouse every time," he said. "A guy can go in and get drunk and get everything out of his system all at once, no messes. He knows how much is going to set him back. These here jail baits is just to set on the trigger of the Husko." Whatever that means, Husko. Lenny followed his words admiringly and moved his lips a little to keep up. George continued. "You remember Andy Cushman, Lenny? Went to grammar school." "The one that his old lady used to make hotcakes for the kids?" Lenny asked. "Yeah, that's the one. You can remember anything if there's anything to eat in it." George looked carefully at the solitaire hand. He put an ace up on his scoring rack and piled a 2, 3, and 4 of diamonds on it. "Andy's in San Quentin right now on account of a tart. said George. And the tart's like a woman, basically. Lenny drummed on the table with his fingers. George? Huh. George, how long's it gonna be till we get that little place and live off the fat of the land and rabbits? I don't know, said George. We gotta get a big stake together. I know a little place we can get cheap, but they ain't giving it away. Old Candy turned slowly over. His eyes were wide open. He watched George carefully. Then he said, tell me about the place, George. I just told you just last night. Go on, tell it again, George. Well, it's 10 acres, said George. Got a little windmill, got a little shack on it, and a chicken run. Got a kitchen, orchard, cherries, apples, peaches, cots, nuts. Got a few berries. There's a place for alfalfa and plenty of water to flood it. There's a pig pen. And rabbits, George. No place for rabbits now, but I could easily build a few hutches and you could feed alfalfa to the rabbits. Damn right I could, said Lenny. You goddamn right I could. George's hand stopped working with the cards. His voice was growing warmer. And we could have a few pigs. I could build a smokehouse like the one Grandpa had. And when we kill a pig, we can smoke the bacon and the hams and make sausage and all like that. And when the salmon runs up the river, we could catch 100 of them and salt them down or smoke them. We could have them for breakfast. There ain't nothing so nice as smoked salmon. When the fruit come in, we could can it, and tomatoes, they're easy to can. Every Sunday, we'd kill a chicken or a rabbit. Maybe we'd have a cow or a goat. And the cream is so goddamn thick, you gotta cut it with a knife and take it out with a spoon. Lenny watched him with wide eyes, and old Candy watched him too. Lenny said softly, "Could live off the fat of the land." Sure, said George. All kinds of vegetables in the garden, and if we can find a little whiskey, we can sell a few eggs or something, or some milk. We just live there. We belong there. There would be no more running around the country and getting fed up by Jap cook. No, sir. We'd have our own place where we belonged, and not sleep in no bunkhouse. Tell me about the house, George, Lenny begged. Sure, we'd have a little house and a room to ourselves, a little fat iron stove, and in the winter we'd keep a fire going in it. It ain't enough land, so we'd have to work too hard, maybe 6, 7 hours a day. We wouldn't have to buck no barley 11 hours a day. When we put in a crop, why, we'd be there to take the crop up. We know what's come of our planning. And rabbits, Lenny said eagerly, and I'd take care of them. Tell me how I'd do that, George. Sure, you go out in the alfalfa patch and you'd have the sack. You'd fill up the sack and bring it in and put in the rabbit cages. They nibble and nibble, said Lenny. The way they do, I seen 'em. Every 6 weeks or so, George continued, them them duds would throw a litter, and so we'd have plenty of rabbits to eat and to sell, and we'd keep a few pigeons to go flying around the windmill like they done when I was a kid. He looked rapidly at the wall over Lenny's head. And it'd be our own, and nobody could can us. If we don't like a guy, we can say, get the hell out. And by God, he's got to do it. And if a friend come along, why, we'd have an extra bunk, and we'd say, why don't you spend the night? And by God, he would. We'd have a setter dog and a couple striped cats, but you got to watch out them cats don't get the little rabbits. When he breathed hard, you just let them try to get the rabbits. I'll break their goddamn necks. I'll smash them with a stick. He subsided, grumbling to himself, threatening the future cats, which might dare to disturb the future rabbits. I love that. George sat entranced with his own picture. When Candy spoke, they both jumped as though they had been caught doing something reprehensible. Candy said, you know where there's a place like that? George was on guard immediately. Suppose I do, he said. What's that to you? You don't need to tell me where it's at. Might be any place. Sure, said George, that's right. You can find it in 100 years. Candy went on excitedly. How much they want for a place like that? George watched him suspiciously. Well, I could get it for $600. The old people that owns it is in a flat bust, and the old lady needs an operation. Say, what's it to you? You got nothing to do with us. Candy said, I ain't much good with one hand. I lost my hand right here on this ranch. That's why they gave me a job swamping. And they gave me $250 because I lost my hand. And I got 50 more saved up right in the bank right now. That's 300. And I got 50 more coming the end of the month. Tell you what. He leaned forward eagerly. Suppose I went in with you guys. That's $350 I put in. I ain't much good, I could cook and tend the chickens and hoe and garden some. How'd that be? George half closed his eyes. I gotta think about that. We was always gonna do it by ourselves. Candy interrupted him. I'm making a will and leave my share to you guys in case I kick off, 'cause I ain't got no relatives or nothing. You guys got any money? Maybe we can get it right now. George spat on the floor disgustedly. We got $10 between us. Then he said thoughtfully, look, if me and Lenny work a month and don't spend nothing, we'd have $100. That'd be $450. I bet we could swing her for that. Then you and Lenny could go get her started, and I'd get a job and make up the rest, and you could sell eggs and stuff like that. They fell into a silence. They looked at one another amazed. This thing they had never really believed in was coming true. George said reverently, Jesus Christ, I bet we could swing her. His eyes were full of wonder. I bet we could swing her, he repeated softly. Candy saw the edge of his bunk. He scratched the stump of his wrist nervously. I got hurt 4 years ago, he said. I'll can me pretty soon, just as soon as I can't swamp out no bunkhouses. They'll put me out of the county. Maybe I'll give you guys my money. You'll let me hoe in the garden even after I ain't no good at it. And I'll wash dishes and little chicken stuff like that. But I'll be on our own place, and I'll be able to work on our own place. He said miserably, You see what they done to my dog tonight? They say he wasn't no good to himself nor nobody else. When they can me here, I wish somebody'd shoot me. They won't do nothing like that. I don't have no place to go, and I can't get no more jobs. I'll have $30 more coming. How many guys is ready to quit? George stood up. We'll do her, he said. We'll fix up that little place, and we'll go live there. He sat down again. They all sat still, all bemused by the beauty of the thing. Each mind was popped into the future when this lovely thing should come about. George said wonderingly, Suppose there was a carnival or a circus coming to town or a ball game or any goddamn thing. Old Candy nodded in appreciation of the idea. We just go to her, George said. We wouldn't have to ask nobody if we could. Just say, we'll go to her, and we would. Just milk the cow and sling some grain to the chickens and go to her. And put some grass to the rabbits, Lenny broke in. I would never forget to feed them. When you gonna do it, George? In 1 month. Right squawk in 1 month. Know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna write them old people that owns the place, and we'll take it. And Candy'll send $100 to bind her. Sure will, said Candy. They got a good stove there? Sure, got a nice stove. Burns coal or wood. I'm gonna take my pup, said Lenny. I bet by Christ he likes it there, by Jesus. Voices were approaching from outside. George said quickly, Don't tell nobody about it. Just us three and nobody else. They liable to can us so we can't make no mistake. It's going like we got a buck barley the rest of our lives, and then all of a sudden someday we'll go get our pay and scram out of here. Lenny and Candy nodded, and they were grinning with delight. Don't tell nobody, Lenny said it himself. Candy said, George? Huh. I ought to have shot that dog myself, George. I shouldn't ought to let no stranger shoot my dog. The door opened. Slim came in, followed by Curly and Carlson and Wit. Slim's hands were black with tar, and he was scowling. Curly hung close to his elbow. Curly said, Well, I didn't mean nothing, Slim. I just asked you. Slim said, Well, you've been asking me too often. I'm getting goddamn sick of it. You can't look after your own goddamn wife. Why? What do you expect me to do about it? You lay off me. I'm just trying to tell you I didn't mean nothing, said Curly. Just thought you might have saw her. Why you tell her to stay the hell home where she belongs, said Carlson. You let her hang around bunkhouse, and pretty soon you're going to have something on your hands, and you won't be able to do nothing about it. Curly whipped on Carlson. You keep out of this unless you want to step outside. Carlson laughed. You goddamn punk, he said. You tried to throw a scare into Slim, and you couldn't make him stick. Slim throwed a scare into you. You're as yellow as a frog belly. I don't care if you're the best welder in the country. You come for me and I'll kick your goddamn head off. And this is where it's going to get a little intense. Candy joined the attack with joy. Glove full of Vaseline, he said disgustedly. Curly glared at him. His eyes slipped on past and lighted on Lenny, and Lenny was still smiling with delight at the memory of the ranch. Curly stepped over to Lenny like a terrier. What the hell are you laughing at? Lenny looked blankly at him. Huh? Then Curly's rage exploded. Come on, you big bastard, get up on your feet. No big son of a bitch is gonna laugh at me. I'll show you who's yellow. Lenny looked helplessly at George, and then he got up and tried to retreat. Curly was balanced and poised. He slashed at Lenny with his left, and then smashed down his nose with the right. Lenny gave a cry of terror. Blood welled from his nose. George, he cried, make him let me alone, George. He backed until he was against the wall, and Curly followed, slugging him in the face. Lenny's hands remained at his sides. He was too frightened to defend himself. George was on his feet, yelling, Get him, Lenny, don't let him do it. Lenny covered his face with huge paws and bleated with terror. He cried, Make him stop, George. Then Curly attacked his stomach and cut off his wind. Slim jumped up. A dirty rat, he cried. I'll get him myself. George put out his hand and grabbed Slim. Wait a minute, he shouted. He cupped his hands around his mouth and yelled, Get him, Lenny! Lenny took his hands away from his face and looked about for George, and Curly slashed at his eyes. The big face was covered with blood. George yelled again, I said get him! Curly's fist was swinging when Lenny reached for it. The next minute, Curly was flopping like a fish on a line, and his closed fist was lost in Lenny's big hand. George ran down the room. Let go of him, Lenny, let go! But Lenny watched in terror the flopping little man whom he held. Blood ran down Lenny's face. One of his eyes was cut and closed. George slapped him in the face again, and still Lenny held on to the closed fist. Curly was white and shrunken by now, and his struggling had become weak. He stood crying, his fist lost in Lenny's paw. And what literally happens is like Curly's beating Lenny up, and all of a sudden Lenny just snaps and catches one of the fists and just keeps squeezing it until just the hand just breaks. I hope there's a way I can find the movie for free because you can kind of see it in the film, obviously. Like in the film, Curly's screaming and you can hear bones cracking as Lenny's doing it. It's pretty intense. George shouted over and over, "Let go of his hand, Lenny! Let go, Slim! Come on! How many while the guy got any hand left?" Suddenly, Lenny let go of his hold. He crouched, cowering against the wall. "You told me to, George," he said miserably. Curly sat down on the floor, looking in wonder at his crushed hand. Slim and Carlson bent over him. Then Slim straightened up and regarded Lenny with horror. "We gotta get him to a doctor," he said. "Looks to me like every bone in his hand's bust." "I didn't wanna," Lenny cried. "I didn't wanna hurt him." Slim said, "Carlson, you get the candy wagon hitched up. We'll take him to Soledad and get him fixed up." Carlson hurried out. Slim turned to the whimpering Lenny. "It ain't your fault," he said. "This punk sure had it coming to him, but Jesus, he hardly got no hand left." Slim hurried out and in a moment returned with a tin cup of water. He held it to Curly's lips. George said, "Slim, will we get canned now? We need the steak. Will Curly's old man can us now?" Slim smiled wryly and he knelt down beside Curly. "You got your senses in your hand enough to listen?" he asked. Curly nodded. "Well then listen," Slim went on. "I think you got your hand caught in a machine. If you don't tell nobody what happened, we ain't going to. You just tell him you try to get this guy canned, and we'll tell everybody. And then you get to laugh." "Sorry. I won't tell," said Curly. He avoided looking at Lenny. Buggy wheels sounded outside. Slim helped Curly up. "Come on now. Carlson's going to take you to the doctor." He helped Curly out the door. The sound of wheels drew away. In a moment, Slim came back to the bunkhouse. He looked at Lenny, still crouched fearfully against the wall. "I'll see your hands," he asked. Lenny stuck out his hands. "Christ almighty, I'd hate to have you mad at me," Slim said. George broke in. "He was just scared," he explained. "He didn't know what to do. I told you nobody ought to fight him. I guess it was Candy I told." Candy nodded solemnly. "That's just what you done," he said. "Right this morning when Curly first lit into your friend, you says, 'You better not fool with Lenny if he knows it's good for him.' That's just what you says to me." George turned to Lenny. "It ain't your fault," he says. "You don't need to be scared no more. You done just what I told you. Maybe you better go in the washroom and clean up your face. You look like hell." Lenny smiled with his bruised mouth. "I didn't want no trouble," he said. He walked toward the door, but just before he came into it, he turned back. "George, what you want?" I can still tend the rabbits, George. Sure, you ain't done nothing wrong. I didn't mean no harm, George. Well, get the hell out and wash your face. And although it seems like maybe Slim can talk Curly into letting it blow over by lying and saying it got caught in the machine, obviously that incident's going to have some long-term consequences. So even though it seems like the dream is maybe kind of actually becoming somewhat tangible with Candy's money, unfortunately that incident might come back to bite him. You shall see next week. Until then, have a great weekend, and I'll get back to you guys on Monday.